Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of Extra Serving, an award-winning production of Nation's Restaurant News. I'm your host, Holly Petre. This week, we're going to be talking about the recent questioning of Howard Schultz by Congress. A congressional committee gathered to ask the Starbucks founder and former CEO about union vesting at unionized Starbucks stores. What did Schultz say? We get into it. Plus, the next frontier of franchising appears to be QSR. Amid a tense economic situation, it appears that QSRs are the franchise of choice, according to the International Franchise Association. It would appear that QSRs are growing because of the trade-down effect. Is this true? And finally, we discussed the recent uptick in emerging brand mergers and acquisitions. We saw two this week: Main Squeeze Juice Bar acquiring I Love Juice Bar, and private equity acquiring Firebirds Wood Fired Grill. So does this mean the renaissance of emerging brand acquisitions we predicted has come true? We discuss. Plus, stay tuned for a special episode next week with our guest, Tracy Skeens, Yum Brand's Chief Operating Officer and Chief People Officer. That episode will be released on Wednesday, April 5th. Now it's time to introduce my co-hosts.
I am Sam Oches, Editor-in-Chief of Nation's Restaurant News.
And I'm Leigh Zinsmeister, Managing Editor of Nation's Restaurant News.
And that wasn't the second time we had to do that intro. No, that was the first time, listeners. Don't worry.
First time, flawless.
We're very good at this.
We're professionals. Well, I get my dates right. That's fine. That's all we need to know, is that I know what day of the week everything is.
What are facts? What are facts, anyway?
We've said that on this podcast before. What are facts?
This is not a destination for facts. I hope that nobody comes to listen to this for facts. That would just be silly.
That's like our tagline at this point.
It's basically our tagline.
What are facts?
We've said it enough that it must be true at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start the podcast with some happy news. Do you guys have anything happy to share?
Sunday was my 9-year anniversary of living in New York City, which is a thing that I celebrate every single year. And Sunday was also like 65 degrees and sunny in New York City, which is unusual this time of year. It has not been true since. So I spent Sunday wandering around Central Park with my best friends and then having happy hour on the Upper East Side. And it was a delightful day.
Very nice. What about you, Sam? Anything happy?
No.
You don't look very happy.
Anyway, next segment.
Happiness. What is happiness but a figment of our imagination? I don't know. I don't think I did anything particularly of note with myself in the past week. I'm still recovering from my trip to California last week and the craziness that was, and the travel problems and what have you.
You sound like such a fun traveler.
Oh, I'm a ball. Well, I'm cursed, as we talked about last week. So I don't want anybody to travel with me because that would be very bad for all involved. No, I don't know. What do I do? What do I do anymore? Just like at home.
I don't know. You have children. Don't they do happy things? Like, has one of them learned to talk or something?
My children are 6 and 4.
So
what do you think?
I don't know. Don't you learn to talk when you're like, I guess read? Do they know how to read? Is that the next thing?
Yes, that is a thing that's happening in our house. So that's a plus.
Yeah, they can read signs soon.
I got to say this. Now, ever since I moved north, well, again, a year ago, I have been reminded that I hate winters in the north. And so that's my real problem right now, that if I was still living in North Carolina, I would be really living it up in very nice 70-degree weather. And instead, I am in Ohio with 45-degree weather. And it makes me sad. Well, that was
your choice. That was your choice, man.
Ohio is my people, but my people have bad weather.
It doesn't sound like they're making you very happy right now. You can't come up with a single thing.
Well, I was put on the spot. I don't know if I could have brainstormed something, but I live a pretty boring life, you guys. I'm just here being a father and a husband.
I went to 2 restaurants this week. That was fun. I got to have drinks with Brett one night, so that was really nice. I always love hanging out with Brett. We went to a really cool restaurant called the Skylark. It's all the way up in Times Square, but it's up on the 30th floor, I believe. So you can like see where the ball drops. The ball is there at all times. So you can see it. It's like lit up. It'd be a really cool spot for someone to go for New Year's Eve. Just saying. I'm sure it's packed there, but you can see it from indoors. So you don't have to actually step outside in the cold.
It's probably
so
like
really
$1,000 ticket on New Year's Eve.
Oh, minimum.
Yeah.
I was going to say a lot more than that.
But it was really nice, and they serve really great drinks. There's a drink called the Skylark, and it's blue.
How about that?
It was a real selling factor for me. I saw somebody else get it, and I said, "Can I have the blue drink?"
Doesn't take much, Holly.
It does not take much to make me happy. A blue drink is all I need. All right, so let's talk about news, guys, because I could talk about blue drinks forever, or pink drinks, or green drinks. I like colorful things. So let's talk about something not so colorful. Howard Schultz and his Senate hearing.
Interesting segue. Yeah, let's talk about it.
I mean, it actually was pretty colorful. Howard Schultz made some interesting remarks. I'll just put it that way. We didn't report on all of them because we are a news organization, but he did say some colorful things. Anyways, he spoke in front of a congressional committee, and he talked about Starbucks union busting efforts, or lack thereof, though the committee was called something along the lines of like, stop union busting at Starbucks. It had a more proper name than that, but it did say literally union busting at Starbucks in the name. So not really as impartial as we think, but what do you guys think about this hearing? I mean, we had a lot of info that came out of it, including the fact that the worker who started the union movement was actually hired by Workers United, was paid by Workers United to start this movement, was a Rhodes Scholar. So I think that was a really interesting thing that came out of it. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, the all this stuff feels a little bit like a circus. I mean, there's a reason why this was such a high profile committee and grilling of Howard Schultz, is because the committee wants to send a message. But you're right, it's not very impartial with the name of Starbucks, whether or not they're union busting. We've talked about Starbucks on this podcast before, and their union busting or unionization situation, shall we say. And at the end of the day, depending on how you fall on where you fall on unions, Starbucks has been made a very high profile example of unionization. And yes, the fact that the person who was leading the unionization was employed by Workers United. I mean, I don't think that's a surprise. But still, I think this is, whatever happens with Starbucks and unionization, it's already been a success, because here we are talking about it. Here is Schultz going in front of Congress to explain themselves. But obviously Starbucks has not been, they're not some saint in this, right? They're not some victim, because they've done a lot of things that, could be construed as being union busting. Where I'll sort of bring all of this is to say, I hope every restaurant company is studying this, because there have been some other examples of unions in the restaurant industry that have not nearly become what Starbucks has. And I think Starbucks is offering a pretty good example of sort of what to do and what not to do. And so I think if you watch this hearing and if you see a lot of the moves that Starbucks has made, they've made a lot of mistakes. It's just been pretty obvious to the lengths to which Starbucks has gone to make this unionization not work. I mean, the thing I thought was so funny is he talked about how he complained that they tried to have in-person meetings, and that the unionizers were asking for Zoom meetings, and that was the reason they had not been able to come together. And it just seems to me like, come on, like, these are just such silly little details. But again, I think Starbucks is going to whatever lengths they can to show that, oh, no, they've been a good player in all this. They're not union busting. But no, companies don't want to be unionized. They will do what they can. Starbucks just happens to be a very high profile company. And so it's a much more delicate situation. And we just saw all of that on display with Howard Schultz. So what comes of it, I don't know. But I will say again, just to reiterate, like, watch this, study this, because if this happens to your restaurant company, you have more or less a playbook now to know what to do. Whereas before, the restaurant industry did not have many examples of unions. This has not been something, it's not been a very common thing for the restaurant industry. So now to watch Starbucks go through it is I think helpful to the rest of the industry at the expense of poor Howard Schultz going through the congressional hearing. Although if you listen to this podcast, I think you'll know that there's no love lost between me and Howard Schultz.
Avid listener, Howard Schultz.
Our best friend. A huge shout out to our colleague Joanna for watching this whole thing, because it was very long and I lasted maybe 30 seconds before I got fed up and bounced because I didn't have to watch it because I knew Joanna would. So she broke down the highlights for us yesterday. No real surprises here. Howard Schultz went in with a script and he stuck to it, all very carefully worded. And so I don't know. Some interesting things came up, but I don't feel like we really learned anything new. It just became perhaps even more high profile by virtue of being a hearing like this. I do think it's interesting to watch what has become of Starbucks, which even as recently as 10 years ago was considered a really progressive restaurant company, was known for taking really great care of its workers. So to see its continued reaction to the unionization effort has been kind of jarring. But yeah, I'm eager to see what comes of it from the union side. But I think it was definitely an interesting morning, but I don't know what all necessarily came out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about the unionization movement at Starbucks, that what it's become. Almost 300 stores are unionized at this point. So it definitely took off. But one question I had for Joanna that you'll hear about on First Bite is that, why Starbucks? Why was that Starbucks was known, just like Leanne said, as this really liberal company. So why were they the ones that were targeted for unionization is my question. But also to that point, Chipotle was fined for its union busting just this week. And they had to pay $240,000 to several fired workers or workers who no longer work for the company. And they had to post this notice in every store that I thought was really interesting that said, we've been union busting. They had to post it in 40 stores around the area that said, we've been union busting. And Starbucks has had to do the same thing. When they fired the Memphis 7, they had to post the exact same notice in Starbucks all across the country that said, we have been union busting. And so I think that it's really interesting that there's this whole element at play that they've kind of already admitted to it because they were accused and shown to actually have fired these people as a union busting tactic. So I think that that's a really interesting thing that's at play too.
What a funny punishment. Go stand in the corner or, wear a sign around your neck saying cheater. I don't know. All of this is pretty funny.
It's especially interesting because obviously what this shows is that, sure, they do what they're legally required to do, but they'll still continue to deny any wrongdoing. It doesn't posting a sign in 40 of your stores doesn't stop you from sitting in front of the United States Senate and defending yourself and your company. So.
And defending the fact that he's a billionaire. He defended the fact that he was a billionaire, which I loved.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think ultimately Starbucks is going to come out of this not looking like the progressive employer that they would like for you to think. I kind of think that ship sailed a couple years ago personally, but and maybe that answers your question as to why Starbucks. Maybe it just seemed like if Starbucks unionized, maybe it seemed like low-hanging fruit that Starbucks of any company would unionize, and if they can unionize, then who can't unionize? I mean, they're such a huge company. But yeah, I mean, look, it's a demonstration that no matter how progressive you are as a company, you have a business mandate that often unionization does not align with. And so, yeah, looking at it from purely a business sense, unions are not good for a company, right? Yeah. But if you look at it from a labor perspective, obviously they are. So mostly this just to say that, no matter how progressive Starbucks is as a company, ultimately they are focused on profit, and
totally.
Unions do not align with profit.
Well, and Starbucks has been seeing record profits for the past several quarters. So pretty wild to think that there's still, I mean, part of it's inflation, but part of it is also just that they are doing really well in spite of all of this. In spite of all this negative publicity, they're still doing really well.
I don't think this would hurt Starbucks sales, right? Like, I mean, especially a company like Starbucks being on every corner. I mean, I feel like, I don't know. I mean, not to drag this out of the past, but when you think about Chick-fil-A and what they went through 8 or 9 years ago with the comments from Dan Cathy, their sales went up 12%. You know, now maybe that's a little bit different, but still the point is like these kinds of things, no matter how much you think they might be PR nightmares and, oh yeah, the customer's going to show their opinion with their dollar. Doesn't really transpire that way because people at the end of the day, if they want coffee and a Starbucks is their closest option, or if it's part of their routine, it's going to take a lot more than Starbucks union busting to get them to stop doing that because it doesn't affect them.
Yeah, every time I go to the office, the Starbucks in our building is like wall to wall, shoulder to shoulder, people waiting for their drinks. And New York City is as liberal as it gets. Chick-fil-A has lines out the door and around the corner every afternoon. So totally.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that kind of brings us to our next story, which is that QSRs are really, you know, becoming the franchise of choice. Starbucks, Chick-fil-A being two of those examples. So the International Franchise Association recently released a new report that said that QSRs are the it thing, basically. That like, if you want a franchise, get a QSR because they're going up like 2.5% versus the whole industry is only going up 1.9%. So they're seeing these bigger numbers in people who are, you know, wanting to open up QSR franchises. Where it's probably because of the trade down effect. I mean, I'm going to hear from you guys what you think, but that's my personal thoughts. We've talked about the trade down effect before. So, I mean, I think it's super interesting to see that QSRs are like predicted to be the next big thing because we've kind of talked about it a little bit too. So this is kind of backing up exactly what we've been saying. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of two different things here. I mean, the first thing is the success of the QSR category, which is, to your point, Holly, the QSRs are doing much better right now than much of the rest of the restaurant industry because of the trade down effect. So with the economy still being very volatile, inflation very high, customers are trading down, and the bottom rung is QSR. So no matter what, they're a benefactor of trade down. So there's that going for them. But the other thing we're talking about here is franchising in particular, going up for QSRs. And so if you are in the market for a franchise, you of course are going to want to partner with a brand that is successful. And so if you're doing it right and you're looking for a smart investment and you notice the trade down's happening, then yeah, right now a QSR is a good investment. Of course, you know, you're talking from the time that you invest in a franchise to the time you get your doors open. I mean, it could be 2 years. I mean, so you don't necessarily want to franchise a QSR right now just because 2023 sales look great. You want to partner with a QSR franchise that is built for the long haul, has a proven track record of success. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, QSR is in a very good spot right now because of the economy and because of the trade down. It's an appealing investment, but I'll say it's also an appealing investment because of everything we've been through in the past 3 years, that QSRs have especially thrived in this more convenience-oriented economy and society. That once upon a time, 10 years ago, fast casuals were really thriving on quality and appeal and, you know, modernization. And there was the whole farm to fork thing. QSRs at that point in time did not look great because they seemed like, oh, it's just, you know, cheap food, cheap, unhealthy food. But when QSRs got up to speed on technology, and then when they, you know, just really positioned themselves as convenience play, you know, they've been doing pretty well for the last couple of years. And so when you add to that the economy, the trade down, yes, that's a very healthy sector. And historically, I mean, you look at the last recession, franchising took off because historically in a franchise or in a recession like this, franchise is appealing because it's a safer bet than starting your own business. And so if somebody wants to launch a business right now and they're looking at the economy, they're thinking, no way. I mean, not only do I have to find the real estate, I have to do all this and that. Oh, I could franchise this company. It figures all of that out for me and still reap the benefits of owning my own business. So yes, it's a confluence of factors that makes QSR a really healthy category right now.
To Sam's point, I think a lot of modern digital innovations and efficiencies make QSRs an appealing choice in the long term. So like, yes, they're a great choice right now because of our current economic situation, but also there are so many things that like weren't around before the pandemic that are probably going to stick around. Like so many of these delivery innovations, all the like AI going into drive-throughs, these technological things that increase output and that will probably stick around, you know, post-pandemic, post-recession. And so I think right now is a great time to get in on QSRs because it from where I'm sitting, it looks like that boom will probably last for a good long time.
I mean, QSRs are healthy. They look at McDonald's, look at Starbucks, look at Chick-fil-A. I mean, look at the top 10 chains. They're mostly QSRs.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you talk about QSR and franchising too, by the way, I mean, QSR practically invented franchising. I mean, this industry has thrived on franchising forever. It's when you bring in somebody else to run your playbook, you want that playbook to be as simple as possible. QSR is tailor-made for this because it's more of a simple operation than a fine dining restaurant. And so it's just a match made in heaven. There are numbers out there that I won't try to quote, but I believe the QSR industry is far and away the most franchised industry. IFA's got some really great numbers on this, so go find them. Or maybe Holly will put them in the show notes. Maybe she'll surprise me. But
probably not.
Probably not. Though. You'll have to go find them yourself. But anyway, point is that like this has been a franchise playground for quite a long time. It's just that the factors are very much more in the favor of the QSR industry right now, and franchising is hot right now. And so all of those factors lead to this growth. Now, I will say, I think fast casual has really embraced franchising in the past 5 or 6 years in a way that it hadn't when it first took off. I mean, in the early days, you had a lot of the stalwarts and fast casual saying we'll never franchise. Now, you know, Chipotle still hasn't franchised, which frankly, I'm kind of surprised by. But a lot of fast casuals have embraced franchising because they've noticed that this is a good way to scale using other people's money. And I mean, it's another factor right now in terms of, you know, expansion and growth right now is, you know, it's still really tough because it's still hard to find the supplies to build a restaurant. It's still, you're still competing with so many different brands for that real estate. And then just having the capital to do so. Franchising answers a lot of that. Or makes a lot of that easier because you can tap into these other people who have boots on the ground in the community they want to build in, who might have the connections, who might have the capital to do that, whereas you couldn't do that from a corporate perspective. So, but a QSR is also going to be, you know, you have some QSR companies that are, I mean, on the low end, Subway is going to be, you know, $25,000 to $100,000 to invest in, up to, you know, maybe 1.5 million to 2 million, but a big casual dining restaurant, that's a many millions investment. So that is prohibitive to a lot of people who want to get in at that level.
Yeah. And I was going to say that casual dining, I've been speaking with several casual dining chains recently, emerging ones that are franchising. And it's interesting because a lot of them, these casual dining chains offer value. Like that's their main thing is value. And so when they're talking about franchising, they're talking about really putting this value proposition out there as a casual dining chain. Like you're going to get a lot of food for your money. You're going to have leftovers. You're going to have endless bread. You're going to have all these different things. And so, I mean, that's an appealing franchise because you know you're going to make money with it.
Well, the profit margin at a QSR is certainly a lot thinner. But I mean, a value proposition done right, obviously can drive traffic. And, you know, if you can drive traffic enough, you can increase your profitability. But I think that's why for a while QSR was not very hot. That's why fast casual took over for a while, is because QSR was too value oriented. You wouldn't make money. I mean, you know, QSR is the king of the loss leader, right? I mean, they just want you to get in the door, but they might lose money on you. I don't think that's so much the case now. There were a lot of lessons learned in the last recession. QSR industry is a lot smarter about how to provide value. Casual dining, obviously, like you said, I mean, they have their own value proposition. But yes, a franchisee at the end of the day wants to make money. And a franchisor at the end of the day wants to help their franchisee make money so that they're happy and so that they continue to invest in the business and then that they want to grow with them. And so profitability is obviously top of mind. What that equation to get you there is just going to be different between the QSRs, the casual dining chains, and the fast casuals.
Yeah, I mean, think about Chick-fil-A. Their AUVs are insane. And so, I mean, like, that's a safe bet for a QSR, pretty much. I mean, not like there's no guarantees, but like I would be thinking as a franchisee, like that's a pretty safe bet to open up a Chick-fil-A because you're going to have the traffic. I mean, think of all the drive-through issues that we've heard from the past 2 years with people waiting in lines that were forever and going to city zoning boards and all these things. I mean, that's a safe bet as a Chick-fil-A. A Starbucks may not be a safe bet.
Good luck franchising a Chick-fil-A. I'm pretty sure the numbers I've heard are that they get like 30,000 franchise requests a year, and I think they reward 20 or something like that. I might be wrong, but
it's possible.
And their model is totally different because it's an owner-operator model. Anyway, that's a rabbit hole we could go down. But yes, Holly, a Chick-fil-A would be a safe bet for a franchisee. You're right.
For those 20 every year, it's a great opportunity. Think of all the money they have.
Yes. I mean, look, if you have the great fortune of owning a Chick-fil-A, you're pretty set.
Congratulations. Well done.
Congratulations. You are one of the few.
Well, Leanne, don't you know a Chick-fil-A franchisee?
I do. A friend of mine's father-in-law has 2 stores in Florida.
See, so it's possible. We know someone. We know somebody through somebody else. It's possible.
I mean,
know someone who knows someone who knows someone. Yeah.
As I understand it, the best way to become a Chick-fil-A franchisee is you got to work your way up through the system. I think they reward a lot of their franchisees to the people who have managed their restaurants, and so yeah, if that's something that you're interested in, I suggest you go get a job at a Chick-fil-A.
Which I hear is a great job, by the way.
Yeah, you'll be taken care of. Don't get me wrong.
This sounds like a Chick-fil-A fangirl podcast at this point, but
I mean, I'll fan out on Chick-fil-A. As I say, I'm a big fan of Chick-fil-A. I eat there all the time.
We are aware. You've told us about your children.
Let's move on. Let's talk about something else. We talked about this for too long.
Let's talk about acquisitions. So we predicted last year that emerging chain acquisitions would be the next big thing, and we've seen 2 of them just this week. So, I mean, what do you guys think about this prediction that we were clearly right on? Just to say, we've said it on this podcast. I'm very proud of us for being right. It's always nice when a prediction comes true. So, I mean, what do you guys think about these acquisitions? I mean, I think they're pretty standard acquisitions, but I think it's more the bigger picture that we want to talk about. Bueller?
Yeah,
Bueller?
I mean, like you said, we saw this coming. I got to say, everyone else on our team's predictions are doing much better than my predictions, but that's fine. I'll just be the one whose predictions flopped.
Which one is your worst prediction so far, Leanne?
I said that casual dining was going to go like totally off premises, and then like 2 weeks later, Chili's closed their off premises store, and that was like the last thing that happened in the area.
Maybe you're cursed. You're the cursed one.
Like, you have the travel curse, but I have the restaurant curse, so I'm not sure which is worse. But we've had multiple people on our team this week say that they've seen their predictions coming true like right now, which is great. I mean, we're technically still in Q1, so well done, everybody. But Sam, I think you're the one who said that fast casuals and like emerging chains were going to start merging and seeking out different kinds of funding. And yeah, we're seeing that all over the place. We're seeing emerging chains merge. These 2 juice companies this week, Main Squeeze Juice Company and I Love Juice Bar. I mean, that acquisition doubled Main Squeeze's footprint, got it into some totally different regions that it didn't operate in before. We've got, what's the other one that was on here this week? Firebirds. It's a casual dining chain that's been acquired by an investment firm. But that's another example of an emerging chain that's, you know, getting some funding and getting set to grow. And those are just 2 examples. I mean, I think we had 4 or 5 M&A deals in March, which is a lot. So Yeah, there's a lot of exciting things happening in the industry. I'm glad that these things are still going on, even with the economy being the way it is. So yeah, well done, Sam, I guess. Or you gave some people some ideas. Everyone listens to this podcast, and then they were like, we should go out and buy an emerging restaurant chain.
Holly, can you just make sure you clip that when she said well done, Sam?
So
I just want that.
Next time I yell at you for like deleting 25 Word files that I needed, I can.
I need that clip readily available on my desktop just to play it whenever Leanne is acting grumpy toward me.
That was one of your 2 compliments of the year, Sam. Cherish it.
Yes. The second one will sneak up on me. I can't wait. Okay, so yeah, I mean, a couple of things. I think first off is what's interesting is, so I had a conversation on my Takeaway podcast. I suggest you go listen to it. Uday Ahuja, who is the chief investment officer for RSE Ventures, which is invested in companies like In Pizza, Momofuku, Milk Bar. He had a really great perspective on all this, and I again suggest you listen to it, because I came out with him with, hey, why so many mergers and acquisitions? And he was all like, what? Like, it seems like a lot to us, but I actually think that the activity is actually not as hot right now as it has been in the past. And he thinks that's going to happen in the next 6 months. And his point was that, investors don't want to make deals when they have no confidence in the economy, because if you don't know what the economy is going to do, you could take a swing and a miss, or you just don't have any confidence in that investment. So his perspective was, he actually thinks things are going to really heat up in the next 6 months. If in fact in 6 months the economy sort of figured itself out by now, but I do think these 2 deals in particular we're talking about are emblematic of other things. So the first thing is with the juice bar companies. That reminds me of what Hopdoddy did last year when they acquired Grub Burger Bar, which is to say, we want to grow, but there's not a lot of real estate for us to grow into. It's harder to build from, scratch or to expand organically. Whereas if we acquire this other brand that's essentially doing the same thing as we are, same branding, same product essentially, and we can just double our footprint just like that. Let's go that route. And there's benefits to both sides. So that's what this juice deal kind of made me think of. Whereas with Firebirds, that's an equity group acquiring a brand with a ton of potential. Firebirds has been around for a while. I mean, they have about 50 locations. That to me is like a bet on the future of casual dining. I mean, Firebirds has a really high quality menu. They're much more of like an upscale casual dining chain. And to me, it's sort of a vote of confidence that casual is coming back, that in-person full service is coming back, and that this equity group wanted to get in on that with Firebirds, which is a really strong player in that market. All of this is to say is that, like, I think that M&A is going to heat up, to Uday's point that he told me on my podcast. And we're going to see a lot more of this, but the deals that happen just make sense, because it's helpful for the brands to pull off their expansion goals. It's helpful for, to place the bets on the trends, the consumer trends and the categories we think are going to take off. And again, as investors have more confidence in the economy, they're going to look for more deals. So yeah, a long-winded way of saying that, on one hand, the merger piece of this, it's a very smart way to expand without having to go through all the struggles that we are seeing right now for organic expansion. And on the acquisition piece of this, it's definitely more of on the investor side, finding those high ceiling targets based on whatever waves are cresting right now. And I think Firebirds represented that in terms of the comeback of casual dining. So lots to be interested in. And again, I think we'll just continue to see a lot more of that in 2023.
Well, Leanne, just to make you feel better, one of my predictions was also crap, because I predicted that desk salads were dead, and I eat a salad at my desk every single week.
So sample size of one.
Look,
it's a failure.
I don't feel bad. I backed up my prediction with data and evidence. So I remain convinced that was a good prediction that just hasn't panned out. And I'm totally comfortable with that. It happens. Also,
the environment now is different.
We've still got 9 more months.
We do have 9 more months, and the environment's probably going to change 500 more times. We have no idea what's going to happen at this point. Like,
Exactly.
we just have no idea. And that's what the economy is doing right now. It's just kind of cresting waves, as Sam liked to say.
Thanks. I'm so glad that I can impart wisdom on you guys. This is
As our elder.
I'm right about things and I'm smart about things. What can I say?
Sure.
What can I say? All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And everybody stay tuned on Wednesday for our episode with Tracy Skeens.
Thanks, Holly.
Thanks, Holly.